Welcome, everybody. Today, we are talking about being newly diagnosed with MS and what it means to have to navigate this diagnosis. And I'm here with my dear friend, collaborator, my teacher and coach, also patient, KT Sloan, who I just adore. We have really taken upon it ourselves to figure out how can we share what we learned that took us so long to learn. How can we share this with other people to give you the shortcut to adjusting to your diagnosis? Because it took me a long time, maybe like 5 years. I wish it was shorter. And so hopefully our conversation today will help you reframe things. Hopefully it'll bring in some new ideas that you can consider. And hopefully you'll feel like you're a part of a group here. We all care deeply about everybody who lives with MS. And we want to share what we've learned and we learn from you. All right, so we're excited to share a few things that we think are going to make your journey much more simpler. We're going to discuss how to navigate the weight of an MS diagnosis, because it can just be so heavy. And how do you get the right support in place, both from a medical standpoint and also from a social, psycho-emotional perspective? How do you deal with uncertainty? Because that is such a big part of MS. And how do you get to that point where you find your new normal? Because when you're kind of in the thick of it, maybe in the first year or two, it may feel impossible that you can ever get to a point where you just accept the diagnosis and then just it becomes part of your day-to-day. So we're going to help you figure out how to get to your new normal. And also, what can we do to put our immune systems back together and begin healing MS? And by healing, I want to be clear, I'm not talking about curing. I am talking about bringing our bodies to a place of greater health. I think healing MS is 100% possible, whereas cure unfortunately isn't, but we want to talk to you about those healing tools. To begin with, let me tell you our stories. I'll start real quick. I was enjoying my life as an anesthesiologist. I was practicing at a really high acuity trauma center near Los Angeles, working 100 hours a week, not sleeping, eating hospital food, being stressed like up to here. But I loved it. I loved my job as an anesthesiologist. After the birth of my first child, I had a weak left arm, couldn't practice anesthesia safely anymore. My world changed and I had to break up with anesthesia, something that I deeply, deeply love doing. So I spent the next 5 years trying to figure out how to take better care of my health, because the ironic thing is I was a doctor and I still didn't know how to take care of my health. I knew what drugs could be used. I knew what the medical management was. I could maybe even read an MRI on a good day, but how do you improve health? Like, how do you build health in the body? How do you create a healing environment? I didn't know that. So I went on my journey of learning integrative medicine, functional medicine, mind-body medicine, some Chinese medicine and acupuncture to try to formulate a plan for myself. And quickly I learned that this is what I wanted to teach other people so that they don't have to work so hard to get their hands on the right information. So here I am. My clinical practice is at Stanford. I work at the Center for Integrative Medicine there. And because MS is my favorite diagnosis, Katie and I joined forces to build a program that can be really transformative for people to accelerate your healing. And then Katie, tell us your story.
Yeah, sure. Well, like you, I loved my job very, very much. I was a teacher, trainer, and coach in the Bay Area, developed professional development programs for people. And I loved it. I planned on doing it for a very long time. And unfortunately, MS had different plans. I was formally diagnosed in 2015, and pretty quickly I was going downhill pretty fast. I had 2 major exacerbations within the first 10 months. And unfortunately, I did lose some vision in my right eye. It did come back, like most things do, but it was enough damage that I could no longer be around fluorescent lights. And if anyone's been in any classrooms or government buildings, they all have fluorescent lights. So I was unfortunately disability retired pretty young, and that was devastating. It was quite literally, because of my vision, a dark place, but also emotionally, it was a really dark place. And I was so lucky at the time. I had a family friend who said, you know, why don't you go to Stanford? I was just a part of helping them design, from a patient perspective, the new neuroscience center. And I said, okay, a second opinion can't hurt. And so I went, and lo and behold, got connected with Dr. Susan Payrovi. And I had the privilege, since I was disability retired, to take a health class from her. I learned she had MS too. And within just a few weeks, I started feeling better. And I started feeling like I could have my life back. So I've been largely stable, thank you to this incredible human that we have here, since 2016. And I wasn't sure that was possible. So now I've kind of made my purpose, I've shifted, I've had to pivot, like we are going to talk about, to continue, doing education in some way, shape, or form, advocacy and support. And I really don't want anyone to suffer in isolation, because I did for a while and it was horrible. So we're here today to talk about that and hopefully share a little bit to make your journey just a little easier.
And Katie, you've just done an amazing thing, because I remember about 2 years ago, you said, I think I'm going to do a podcast. And I was like, okay, that sounds like a good idea. And you did it. And now it's grown to this podcast that is listened to globally. And it is like an encyclopedia of information that you need to know as a patient. So I hope everybody takes advantage of Katie's podcast, MS.UNDERSTOOD, MS.UNDERSTOOD. We'll share the information with you. It is just profound what you have been able to create. It's just such a gem. So, let me transition into something we wanted to talk to everybody about. There's when you get the diagnosis, it just feels like the whole world just fell on your head. And sometimes it can actually feel a little bit of a relief, where you're like, now I know what it is, right? So everybody sort of has a different response to the diagnosis, but it's a lot, because now you have decisions to make. You have to take in complex information and decide what therapies you're going to choose. I have heard stories from patients who said that they got a couple of pamphlets of different DMT drugs and they were asked to choose, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that a neurologist could present the information in that way with such little support, because this is a big decision. Then there's the cost of care and insurance, and then whether or not you can work. So there's really a lot to adjust to. And one of the most important things is, from a healthcare perspective, you've got to assemble your team. You've got to figure out who are your team members, who's your neurologist, who's physical therapy, is there an MS nurse, are there other people on the team that need to be present, right? So that you feel comfortable that you're in good hands with your medical team. But what I want to help you understand is that even though your symptoms maybe came on suddenly, MS doesn't happen overnight. There's a long timeline behind the process over many years, if not decades, where the immune system is getting a little wonky, a little dysregulated. Different factors from the environment come in and start winding up the immune system in a not so good way. And so you probably have genetics that favor MS. You might have other people in your family with MS or other autoimmune diseases. To me, it's kind of the same. And then different things that may happen to you over your lifetime, even things that you maybe don't think are important, whether or not you were breastfed, whether or not you were delivered by C-section or normal delivery, whether or not you took a lot of antibiotics throughout your life. Did you have infections? Did you have stressful periods? Did you have a stressful childhood? We talk a lot about childhood trauma and its impact on adult health. Very clear connection there, and lots of studies coming out on this. So there's all of these things, hits to your immune system along the timeline of your life. And that is what drives an autoimmune process forward. So yes, it may feel like your symptoms came on all of a sudden, but this has probably been brewing under the surface for quite some time where you didn't have enough symptoms or abnormalities on your labs for us to go searching for it. And MS isn't just limited to the neurologic and immune system. It hits other systems like your hormone systems, the GI system, urinary system. You want to have a baby? Now you might have to go see a high-risk OB specialist. So everything is connected. And that's why, again, you need to think about who your team is. And in functional medicine, we talk a lot about systems of function in the body. You know, in Western medicine, we divide up the body into organs. In functional medicine, which is a holistic system of medicine, we divide up the body into different functions. So MS will impact the hormone system. It'll impact the energy production systems like the mitochondria. It'll hit the gut and the microbiome. So it's a disease that hits on everything. So when you see a neurologist and just work with DMTs, that's an important approach. But it's not all of it, because how are you addressing all of those different dysfunctions in the microbiome, the gut, the hormones, and other systems? So this is where lifestyle medicine comes in. And we are big proponents of using all your tools, because time is brain and spinal cord, which means the faster you act, the sooner you get on the train, the more function you'll preserve. And if some of you are young, like, this is so important. And if you're older and more progressed, it's still important because we want to slow things down. So Katie, tell me a little bit about you and how this was a big, major life-altering event for you.
It sure was. And I'm so glad that you mentioned about how MS takes time to develop, because learning that actually helped me calm down and get out of that panic. So it is a major life-altering event. It's a process. It took us a long time to get sick. It will take some time to get well, but there are things that work. And, you know, my diagnosing neurologist, well-intentioned, lovely gentleman, said, take a DMT, pray, and hope. And that was pretty much all he had for me. So I met this person at the time when I needed it most, and she got me on the right path. So there were lots of decisions to be made. I had to learn how to stop and breathe. I had to learn how to research. I had to take time to choose my path. I decided to go on a DMT and do lifestyle. Some people choose one path. It's really your choice, but you want to think about the possible outcomes of that choice and be okay with whatever you choose. I see my MS diagnosis now also as a wake-up call and an invitation to learn more about myself. And, you know, for many of us, and Dr. Susan, you can talk about this too, we're very outward facing in our care and our energy. And what happens is when we get this diagnosis, all of a sudden we have to actually come into better balance and learn how to take care of ourselves in a new way. And that's something that's very, very common amongst our community. And it's a big shift. So I definitely want to impart that message today that it's not an easy shift, but it's really important. And MS manifests uniquely, like Dr. Payrovi is saying, in each of us. And so the sooner we get to know our MS, the sooner we can find our pathway to better health. So just really also one other piece of advice I would give that was instrumental in me finding my way and where to start was I got a full neuropsych evaluation, and they were able to really tell me about the strengths I had cognitively. They also talked to me about some potential triggers, stress triggers, and helped me learn how to manage my stress. And so those were some really important things I did early on that I would definitely consider having on your radar.
Yeah. So getting engaged early is important, because again, time is brain. And it's again, you know, just to make sure you have the right support in place. I want to reiterate that conventional medicine isn't your only tool. It's a very important tool. And what you choose to do with your neurologist is a very complex decision. So we don't get in the middle of that. But what we are going to get in the middle of is making sure that you're using the tools that don't cost much, that work every time, and they are going to create that healing environment in your body so that your DMT drugs can work better. Or if you're not using DMT drugs, at least you have something in place to help your body thrive. And so a couple of things about just having the right support in place. As far as a neurologist, you'd want to make sure you have a neuroimmunologist who is specialized in MS. I would prefer that you're not seeing a generalist, because I have seen cases where somebody's been on maybe a low efficacy DMT and has progressed for 1 or 2 decades because they just thought that they were on the right medication. So, but I think if you see a specialist who sees MS day in and day out, you're going to get more specific care. So, and if you live somewhere where neuroimmunologists are not available, maybe you find somebody further away that you touch base with when needed, and then you have your own local neurologist for just the more day-to-day things. And also just making sure you have a primary care doctor. I can't tell you how many patients I see where I'm like, who's your primary? And they go, I don't have one. Your primary doctor is the person who's going to coordinate your care between neurology and physical therapy and ophthalmology and urology. Like, you need somebody to coordinate that care. That is not your job to do. And it's important, if you find somebody, whether it's your neurologist or a primary doctor, hopefully it's somebody that you click with. And this is a person that is going to listen to you and answer your questions, even if it means they tell you, come back for another appointment so I can answer your questions, because these doctors do have to work fast and they have a lot of check boxes they have to fill. Physical therapy is really important, and I think it's still underutilized. If you have physical deficits, like, make sure that you're using that service. It's oftentimes very well covered by insurance. And then the one that's more shaky as far as insurance coverage is mental health care, which unfortunately is really hard to come by, because let's face it, after the pandemic, our mental health providers are burned out. They have left the profession, and the number of patients with mental health issues has skyrocketed. So there's a huge mismatch. But whatever you can do to address your mental health early on in your diagnosis is really important. I do remember thinking to myself, I got this, I know how to do this. And I tried to do it by myself for a long time. And then my husband goes, hi, you need to go see somebody, because I'm tired of this circle that you're doing all the time. And I thought, oh, he's right. And it was within 5 sessions or even less with this person, my whole world got reframed in a way that helped me move faster through that time of just confusion where I didn't know what I was doing. And so, question the advice that you're getting. Do you trust the people that you're seeing? Do you need a second opinion? And I think there's also a balance between being cautious and getting the right team versus too many second opinions, third opinions, fourth opinions. There is a point where you can overdo it and become a professional patient. So, do your research before you go see people, and hopefully within a few different doctors, you can choose who works for you. And if your neurologist isn't on board with lifestyle and mind-body skills and working on that aspect of MS care, it's okay. If they're a great neurologist, fine, you stick with them, but then you go on your own and you find that information, because unfortunately, we still have a lot of resistance that lifestyle works. But I can tell you, both Katie and I know it from personal experience, and I've worked with hundreds, thousands of autoimmune patients, and Katie runs so many support groups. So we get to see people flourish as they engage and do more. How about you, Katie? Tell us about, you have a different perspective as a patient. Tell me about, getting that right team in place.
Yes, it doesn't just happen. It takes time, and it takes us being really honest with ourselves. Is this person a good match? Are we aligned? The path I want, is that something they support? There are neurologists out there who, if you decide not to take a DMT, will not take you as a patient. So you're going to have to kind of choose your path and then find the right care team. I did for a while have two neurologists, and at one point they had different opinions about how I should move forward. And I actually had them call each other and come to consensus. I don't know if they really appreciated that, but I certainly did, because then I felt like they were both on my team. I did end up a few years later just kind of transitioning to one, and that's been a really good choice for me. But I think so many of us shy away from asking for a second opinion. And if you feel in your gut that you're not seeing the right person, trust that. That's one of the most important things I think I've learned through this whole journey, is learning how to trust my intuition and that inner voice. Another thing I want to just briefly touch on is I had immediate needs when it came to my employment because of how MS hit me. And that doesn't happen to very many people. A lot of people continue to work normally for many, many years, even decades. But for me, it resulted in my disability retirement pretty soon. And so I do want to highlight, there's an episode of MS.UNDERSTOOD, episode 30, which really, it's an interview with an incredible attorney who about half of his clients are people with MS. He's helped all of us across the United States really navigate this whole process. And it's really smart, if you do have a serious issue like I did, to get that process started early, and also to just talk to someone. He's such an amazing human, and he'll just let you know, now's not the time to worry about this, but be thinking about these things. And he's just such a strong advocate for us. So if that pertains to you, I highly recommend listening to that episode. His information is shared there. Reach out. He is a gem of a human, and he will take good care of you. I also want to mention family support, because this is tough. Our families, they have the best intentions, and our friends, but MS is something that's really hard to understand unless you live with it yourself. When you say things like, I'm experiencing fatigue, people will say, I'm tired too. Or you'll get a lot of comments like, but you look great. And none of these things we know are helpful. They're trying their best. So there's also some episodes that are meant for misunderstood. There are some episodes that are meant for your loved ones to listen. And that was my attempt to say the things that sometimes our loved ones might not listen or hear if we say them, but if someone else does, they might. So there are a lot of episodes around that to kind of help us get the support that we want and need. The other thing I think is just finding your people, finding other people who truly understand. What that means is connecting with other people with MS, because oftentimes, even now, I'll have a symptom and I can't find the words to describe it, but somehow when I get together with other people with MS, there's like this secret language, and we don't even have to really explain it much, and people understand, and it's really beautiful. So, we have a lot of networks that you can join to be in community with people. There's also mymsteam.org, which is like a Facebook for people with MS. You can find people near you, people taking the same DMT, suffering from the same symptoms, and it's all free. So there's so much out there. So anything that you can do to begin to understand your MS will help you build your support network.
Absolutely. And, I think one of the things I know I struggled with was uncertainty, because when I first got diagnosed, I wasn't sure when the next hit was coming. And am I going to have to give up an arm? Or is my leg going to be affected, or my eye? Like, I would play this game in my head all the time, and it didn't help. Right. And it took time for me to start kind of being like, okay with uncertainty, which is actually an amazing thing. If you think about it, most humans walking on earth are not okay with uncertainty. But those of us who've kind of lived with this for a while, we're like, it's okay. We have other things in place because it helped me live more in the now. So make sure that you get family on board and to help you with decision making. This is like definitely not a one brain decision. And it's important actually to take somebody to doctor's appointments with you, so their second set of ears. I have so many patients that actually do this because I always encourage it. They're both like elderly women. They're both lost their husbands. They go to appointments for each other and they take notes. you should do that, because you're only going to retain so much of what your doctor says in an appointment. Or if your loved one can't be there, call and do a video call and have them talk to your doctor right there in the middle of the meeting. There's nothing wrong with that. Make sure that you ask for all your options, and including those outside of conventional medicine. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do your medications and DMTs, but what else can you squeeze out of naturopathic medicine, functional medicine, Chinese medicine? Because some people really do well with acupuncture and Chinese medicine, and that helps allay some of the symptoms that maybe Western medicine can't help. There's lots of natural products that can be helpful. So don't limit yourself just to the arsenal of conventional medicine. And as I said a little while ago, get therapy early on to help you reframe things and find your path forward faster. It will just pay off so much. And if you can't get therapy, get into a good supportive MS group, because I also get to see people make a lot of progress when we get together in groups and just talk about what's on people's minds. So that's always an option as well. I also love it when my patients, I say something to them and they go, "Do you have the data on that?" And I go, "Yes, I do." So they ask me for an article, and it's my job to back up what I say with evidence, right? So don't be afraid to ask your doctors for articles to read further, and educate yourself. Like, we shouldn't, as patients, be afraid to go into the medical literature. You may not understand the main body of the article because it's too technical, but you read the beginning and the end, and you'll get the gist of it. So this is part of just building your knowledge so that you can navigate this better. And Katie, I know you're a big proponent of therapy as well. Tell me about your perspective on that.
I am, and I had no idea that that was going to be such a big part of my MS story. So I think I'll just echo what you said, that just really find a good therapist, a trauma-informed therapist to talk with. And it's really amazing. They actually turn out to be almost like a dear friend. So I have had a very, very positive experience with that. I do want to talk a little bit about mindset, because so many of us, we have this negative self-talk in our head, especially when we experience this, very life-changing experience. And I didn't also understand how important having a healthy or a growth and positive mindset would be. And, learning a lot over the last few years about, how many thoughts we have per day, over 50,000, and that 90% of those are repetitive thoughts. And of those, 80% are negative. You can tell how, when we're facing this stressful thing of an MS diagnosis, how we can rapidly spiral into a very, very negative place. And so I wish I had gone down the mindset road earlier. And so I wanted to highlight an incredible program today called Positive Intelligence, PQ, by a gentleman named Shirzad Shameen. And this actually is an app-based program that helps you change the thought pathways in your mind. And it is really, really powerful. So I'll talk about that a little bit later too, but I think just really being aware of your thoughts and when you're diving into negativity is really important early on.
Yeah, it's that awareness is where it starts, right? Just taking stock of what's happening up here. Can you shift into a place where you're less in the doom and gloom, and perhaps starting to engage in some emotions where you feel in control, in more secure, maybe even engaging in joy. It's possible. I can tell you, it comes with time and practice. And, when it comes to finding your new normal, again, I think it takes time. I've had patients who within 6 months, they feel like they found their new normal, and others at 2, 3, 4 years, they're still kind of struggling because there's still a lot going on medically, lots of symptoms coming up. So what I want you to appreciate is that, as humans, like, we have this amazing ability to adapt, and we always find a way. And the more support you have, the faster it'll happen. And some of the tools that'll make it easier, I think, is just being open to new possibilities, to new ways of being. When I had to quit anesthesia, I thought that was the end of my life. I practiced sexy, fast, exciting medicine, and now I do slow, but powerful medicine is in integrative medicine. So I've had to, and I never thought I could be happy doing work in a clinic. In fact, that's why I became an anesthesiologist. I didn't want to talk to patients. Now all I do is talk to patients, and I love it. So that was a new possibility that I had never imagined, but it happened, and it's enriched my life so much. And I was able to imagine myself as a different kind of person, like someone who exercised and went to bed early and like became very health conscious. I was not very health conscious before. I didn't smoke and drink, but that's not really what being healthy is, right? There's more to it. And just, the more you can tap into lifestyle to support your body, and you'll see the positive changes, the more encouraged you will be to keep going. Our bodies are programmed to create health. They're actually not programmed to create disease. There's external factors that come in and mess with our processes to create disease. But when an egg and a sperm come together and all the genetic information is there to build a whole human, that's all geared towards building what's normal and disease-free. And so those same processes are still in you. We just have to create the right conditions so we can turn those pathways on.
That's so exciting. That's so exciting. Every time you say that, I love hearing it. And it's certainly been true in my experience and so many in our communities. I want to share a little bit here about, first of all, the MS symbol is the butterfly. And it's that because the MRI imaging resembles a butterfly wing. However, I also am fascinated with nature and the symbolism of nature. And metamorphosis is actually, the definition is two separate lives. And in many ways, I've had two separate lives. I had my life before MS, and now I have a darn good life with MS. Was there a transition period? Yes. But I do want you to know that that's possible. Both of us have experienced that, and we know a lot of other people who have. And so I think choosing to be a butterfly rather than lamenting on all of the things that maybe we've lost or that we're not able to do anymore is really important, because otherwise we can really go down that spiral of negativity. And, taking time to grieve some of the things we've lost is also really important. And I needed a therapist to kind of help me with that. That didn't come to mind as something that was important to do. But I also learned how to appreciate all the things about me that were working and that were healthy. And by having that more balanced approach, I think I was able to build back better health faster. So, pay attention to all the things that are working and are great in your life, not just the things that are hard. And I'll mention a resource here that helped me a ton. It was actually given to me by a former colleague who also lives with MS. She gave me the book called Pivot by Jenny Blake. And that really helped me find ways to start a second life and move in a different pathway while still taking with me all of the skills and many of the things I loved about my previous life.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just about being around the right people who carry you with them and lift you up and helping you putting into place the tools that you need. So, I want to transition to just some things that are like more actionable. Hopefully this will help you have something to work on so that you feel like you're in control and you're making progress. There are things you can do to bring your immune system towards a more normal way of functioning. With autoimmunity, we think of it as dysregulation. It's not like you have a really strong immune system. You just have an immune system that's forgotten the rules and it's starting to attack the wrong thing. So how do we get it to stop doing that? Now, again, everybody will have a different level of success with this, but it's worth doing, because I don't think I've ever seen somebody do this and they go, you know what, I'm worse. So here are 3 tools, and I'll be very broad because I want you to just kind of get this in your head as like 3 things you can tap into. Number 1, lifestyle. Like, what are those daily decisions, small daily decisions you make every day that you're sending signals deep into your DNA to turn on specific genes, which means you turn on specific pathways. And so what are those decisions? Well, the type of foods you're going to put in your body, how you're going to move your body today, how you're going to sleep, how do you manage the stress that's in your life? And one that maybe most people don't talk about and may not be on your radar is an awareness of toxins in the environment. How do we start getting exposed to less toxins so that our body doesn't have to deal with this increased burden. You know, these toxins can be very damaging to hormones and mitochondria and cells. So lifestyle is of key importance. And whether or not you're on DMTs, I think it's a no-brainer, like it has to be part of your care if you really, truly want to live well with MS. Number two, community. I did this alone the first 2 years because I was so afraid of even speaking the words MS out loud because I didn't want to put it in the universe. So I suffered in silence. And now I say, no suffering allowed. Like, you come to our groups and we'll talk through it, right? There's nothing that we can't have a conversation about and help you brainstorm and figure out how you can move forward. There's a lot of healing that happens in community. And we don't even have to meet in person because we know even through Zoom, it works. I've been seeing patients exclusively on Zoom, and it's just been wonderful. So having the community of people that understand what MS is really powerful. And then the third thing I would say is engaging in positive emotions and joy. Like, think about the thoughts going through your head. Are they positive or negative? Do you feel positive emotions or negative emotions? And you actually have control over where your thoughts and emotions are. So you can be more intentional about doing things that are joyful, dancing, spending time with loved ones, crafting, like whatever it might be. There's really no limit to what that can look like, right?
Absolutely. Oh, and I think you covered most of the things I wanted to mention here. I'm so glad though that you mentioned joy, because this is something that I struggled with a lot. I stopped singing for so long, you know, a lot of the things that brought me joy. And at a recent support space meeting, we actually had a lot of people who said, I don't even know how to find joy again. And so what we did is we had a conversation. Well, what's something fun that you just want to try? Maybe something you've never done before. And then the next week, everyone came back with the ideas of what they had done. And it was really exciting, you know, and sometimes you find the thing right away that brings you joy and sometimes you don't. But if you're having a hard time finding joy, there's also a great cognitive behavioral therapy thing called behavioral activation. And there's an entire misunderstood episode on that. It's a really simple process, but oh my gosh, within a couple of days of using behavioral activation, you can lift yourself to a much higher place of positivity. So again, I just want to reiterate, don't suffer in isolation. There's so many groups out there. If you connect with us, we can point you in all sorts of directions, depending on your interests and who you want to most connect with. Just don't suffer in isolation. People are here and we're stronger together.
Absolutely. So I hope that gave you some ideas around where you can start working and, you know, assembling your team and figuring out the healing mindset that you need, and how do you pull in the lifestyle strategies to create the healing conditions in your body. It's a lot if you try to do it all in 1 week or 1 month, but it's a process. It takes many months, a year, 2 years to like really get good at it. But you got to start somewhere. And we want to talk to you about things that we've put together that are like, you know, a labor of love for us. We literally eat, breathe this stuff 24/7. So I'll share with you what I do. And then I want to also share with you some of Katie's programs. So along with Katie's help, we created Truemedicine, which is an online wellness program for people with MS. We only do MS because it's our favorite diagnosis. And we run these programs twice a year. I have a 12-week program where you get all the lifestyle habits. And not only are you learning, but more importantly, you're implementing. So this is on the left here is the 12-week lifestyle program. Or you could choose to do something shorter. This is a 12-day MS detox challenge, food-based. We're going to use nutrition along with really high impact behaviors. You're going to have a daily challenge. And in even 12 days, you will be a different person at the end of it because you're eating clean and you're doing things that are probably different than what you're doing right now. So over here, we have a 12-week programs for somebody who wants the deep dive. And I'll tell you what, going back to the foundations program here on the left, we measure symptoms at the beginning of the program and at the end, and we're not giving people any medications or supplements. And by the end of the program, on average, people are dropping their symptom scores by almost 50%. This is just behavior. That's the power of lifestyle medicine, right? And then here to the right, I have the MS gut restoration protocol. It's a 6-week program. If you have heard of leaky gut, food sensitivities, elimination diets, optimizing stomach acid, repairing leaky gut, this is the program for that. It's hard to do this on your own. I have tried with my patients when I used to work one-on-one with them. Very, very hard to get somebody to do the whole protocol on their own. But together as a group here at Truemedicine, we can do it together. And again, it's people will say that they've lost weight, they have less pain, less anxiety, they feel good. So this is the power of your own body healing. And then Katie, tell them about your amazing podcast.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes. MS.UNDERSTOOD. I've been at it a few years. There are 75 episodes and counting, and they are all different things that are important to either understand about MS, or they're different avenues for living well with MS. There's a lot of guests. Dr. Payrovi is a regular guest, and there's a lot of other guests too, naturopathic doctors, acupuncturists. I mean, it runs the gamut. And I encourage you to check out the catalog, see what's there, and see what resonates with you, and start there. Your MS is different than mine, but hopefully there's something there that will grab your attention, and that you will help you take the next step. And next, we have a couple of...
Can I just say something also? Aren't your first 5 episodes sort of geared as an introduction to MS? Is that a good place for people to start?
Some of the early ones, yes. I would recommend at least starting. Episode 0 will kind of explain why it's so important to get with other people with MS and learn together. So yeah, I would start at the beginning, but of course, if there's something that doesn't pertain to you or something else is really drawing your attention, you certainly can skip around. For sure. And then there's 2 opportunities that I'm offering right now. These selfishly, I developed for myself, for my own learning and my own healing. And then I turned around and offered them to other people. And one of them is Writing to Heal. There's a bunch of experts who have developed neuroplasticity journaling prompts, and it helps us create shifts. And I'm offering an 8-week journaling course coming up that's going to start actually on June 12th. But even if that timing doesn't work for you, if this is something that you're interested in doing to kind of explore your thought patterns and try to create some shifts, just reach out to me. There is a little interest survey. You can reach out and say, I'd love to do this. There's also a pathway where you do it completely independently on your own. So I encourage you to kind of think about it. It will help you get in tune with some of those inner thoughts that you might not even know are there. And then the last opportunity I wanted to share is the Positive Intelligence. I mentioned this book before, and this is the app-based program. It's an 8-week program. And boy, it completely changes how you manage your thoughts. Thoughts are just thoughts until we give attention to them. And I've never seen, as an educator, I've seen a lot of mindset materials. This is the first one I actually fully believe in and actually helps people make a shift to a more positive place. I've put several cohorts of people from the MS community through it, and it has helped everyone. So if you're interested in that, there's a link there to the interest survey, and that is also starting on June 12th, but I am offering cohorts later in the year if that interests you. It's a pretty expensive program, but I offer it at a teeny fraction of the cost just because I want to make it accessible to anyone in our community who wants it, and there are scholarships available. So never let cost be a barrier. So those are some of the things I have offering on the table right now.
this program is actually really fun to learn. I was playing the audios in the car, and my kids actually were learning the different saboteurs, which, you know, there's many different ones. And then my kids started saying, like, you have this saboteur and I have that saboteur. So it's really fun to do, and it'll just give you so much such an understanding of your own actions and behaviors. I'm a highly proponent of it. All right. So thank you for being here and hearing us out. I hope this was helpful. We're going to offer monthly webinars. Next week, we're talking about fasting. So I hope you show up to that one. That's another powerful tool. By the way, I forgot to mention that my programs start in August. So between now and August, take advantage of Katie's programs. It'll be life-changing. So we just want to make sure you have access to things that we really believe are powerful. So I hope today's conversation gave you some food for thought to start working somewhere. It doesn't matter where you start, as long as you just get into action and start being curious and to learn what you need to do and put it into practice. We are always here to help and support. Katie, it was wonderful collaborating with you to think about what are the most important things we want to share with our folks that we care so much about. So thank you for being here.
Oh, and thank you so much for having me. I remember personally struggling so much in the beginning, and it's just an honor to be able to help others hopefully find their way a little easier than we did.
Okay, well, until next time, we'll sign off for today and take good care.